Now, for decades, Somalia has been seen as the world's most comprehensively failed state, bristling with violence and representing a threat to itself, the Horn of Africa region, and the wider world. And with the people of Somalia forced to live with the tyranny of the Al-Qaeda-linked terror group known as Al-Shabaab. But now the Somali government, helped by the African Union's peacekeeping mission in Somalia and a Somali national army that's growing in strength, is taking greater charge. And slowly but steadily, the Somali people are starting to decide their own destiny. So is there now another side to the Somali story that's more positive and hopeful?
To say that the Somali security forces continue to demonstrate their preparedness and capability to defend their country. The ongoing operation now is being handled by SNA. We give limited support. All those areas that were liberated by SNA. So they are up to the task. There is no doubt that even if we draw down the 3,000 soldiers in September, the situation, I believe and I'm confident, will be under control. It was in Yemen. How far is Yemen from Uganda? For example, or Mozambique. They were in Syria, now they are in Mozambique. They are in Sahel region, and they are here in Mogadishu. So there is nobody who is safe. Mozambique is in Southern Africa. So nobody is safe in this era of terrorism. West Africa, definitely the effects there, the threats are real, and the indicators are already showing.
That's the man in charge of the African Union forces in Somalia. Well, Arise defense correspondent Ferdinand Duruoha has just returned from a reporting trip to Somalia, and he joins me now in the studio. Good to see you, Ferdy. Good to see that you're well and okay. And of all the places to go, a lot of ordinary people have been asking why Somalia. But of course, as both, journalists, we know that that's where a great story could come from.
Definitely, and I don't think there's a bigger story right now in Africa than a set of people who want to take their destiny in their hands. Now, that's exactly what the Lieutenant General is in charge of ATMIS, the African Union Transition Force in Somalia. Now, that's exactly what he's saying, and he captures it quite clearly there, the fact that he believes that the Somalian forces can indeed liberate themselves. Now, what has happened is that since 2007 that the African Union forces touched down, well, they've taken the lead. They've, pushed Al-Shabaab to, dip into some of those places where they still hold some control. From the statistics that we hear that they are still very dominant in about 35% of the state. Now, in the other places, it's not as if they don't have active forces or they don't come out and do some guerrilla actions, but then the Somalia National Force is pushing them back. Now, the president is also trying to go around and then trying to recruit force, because it's all about fatigue. Now, there's a fatigue from every corner. But from the African Union, there's a fatigue in terms of funding. They can no longer continue to spend monies here. In the war in Somalia, we've seen them spend as much as 16 years there, and they've had to cough out these monies. Now, we've had a 32 years war for the Somalians, and they're already exhausted. They're tired. But for some of them, pointing fingers at some people overseas, saying, well, you are the cause of our problems. You want everybody out of it. And so because of these things, they've decided in 2022 to allow the Somalia forces take the lead and then provide support. Now, we have 6 countries there providing that support. Now, Nigeria is one of those countries providing that support, training them, helping with some logistics, helping them to develop that confidence that they can actually do it on their own. Because at a point, this is a country that was, bedeviled by all sorts of problems. And then they became a problem, not just to themselves, but as you rightly captured it, the whole Horn of Africa was almost lost. And then he was also saying it there, that the threat of Al-Shabaab is real. Even in Nigeria, there are links. Even in West Africa, in West Africa, every part of Africa, nobody is safe. And in as much as African Union is trying to, well, let's allow Somalia take the lead, and then there's a plan of schedule. Already they've started withdrawing troops. Well, earlier in June, they withdrew 2,000 troops. In September, we will have 3,000, being withdrawn. And then in December, we will have as much as 4,000. Then the whole plan is by the end of 2024, we will have everybody out of Somalia and then allow the Somalians. But the question is, how ready is Somalia?
And that's a question that'll have to wait for an answer, won't
Definitely.
it, till that 2024. But one is immediately reminded of what happened in Afghanistan as soon as the international forces left. The Taliban overran the place.
Well, that's one question that we kept asking. But they are saying that from what the Somalians have shown, from some of the places that have been liberated recently, they've shown that they can hold their own. But I bet it's going to be down to the forces. Well, I think somehow there's something that is going to happen to allow some of these forces still be in place. Where right now we have about 17,200 of them. And after the drawdown, 3,000 and then 4,000, well, we perhaps might just have about as much as 5,000. Now, the 5,000 force is still in place.
Right.
But the good thing is that there is some kind of a plan that will still leave some people in there. I can assure you that we will still have as much as 190 Nigerians. But guess what? These are police officers who help. And that's because at this stage of the war, you are no longer talking about military actions anymore in some of the major cities. But you need to police these people. You need you need to strengthen the police force, and that's because you will begin to have more civil engagement. Now, that's exactly what the Nigerian forces are doing there right now, trying to empower them, trying to help them in terms of training, trying to make them understand that, well, this is exactly how to go about it. Human rights is a major factor, and they are also trying very, very hard to ensure that, well, these rights are respected and, put everything in check.
Well, I mean, did you travel a lot inside? I mean, you were there for about 5 days or so. You didn't travel inside, or were you sort of mostly in Mogadishu?
Some of us had, we stopped at Duruoha also, where we had some other West African forces, Ghana and Sierra Leone. But the green zone, the red zones, and you want to be very careful, and that's because it's a very volatile place. It looks calm, but trust me, I had a couple of rounds go out. And, rounds can go out for things as trivial as traffic, traffic situations. And then you begin to see people run helter-skelter. So for the few times that we had to go out of the green zone, which potentially is the place where sort of has the UN protection, we have to go in armored vehicles and then get dressed in the helmets and then in body armor and
you took lots of photographs.
Definitely.
I like that. That's some serious war reporting there. But I mean, should we continue to regard Somalia as a failed state? I mean, or has it now moved past that from what you saw?
Well, the expression is it's volatile. The truth is Al-Shabaab, and not just Al-Shabaab. Before Al-Shabaab, there was a civil war where we had plenty of people get into things, getting the whole place messed up, a whole lot of, forces, military lords wanted to have a bite out of the Horn of Africa. But then, at a point right now, it is Al-Shabaab who are indeed causing the most danger, masking themselves in that religious fanaticism of wanting to push some kind of religious sentiments out there, and it's not really safe. It's not really safe. But you take a look at the town, you see the reconstruction efforts going on.
What about the institutions of government? I mean, you've got a presidency, you've got... are they enough to suggest that it's moving out of being a failed state?
From what we hear, there are over 7 people still trying to claim presidency. Lots of states have presidents. But there's one man in the middle who has won the election and who a lot of people are trying to galvanize. Now, let's not forget that even for Somalia, there are some people who would come out and say, hey, come on, we're not Somalia, we are from Somaliland. And, you know, they've had that problem of identification. But I think it's something, I think what they need to do is have a big man somewhere, rally everybody together, something like what we saw in Rwanda, you know, rally everybody together, make everybody understand that it's time for us to come in. And there's also the identity crisis. I saw lots of people who identify themselves as American Somalis, and some people would say, well, we are British Somalis. Now, these are people who, you know, were refugees, got passports, and right now they've come back. They want to help build the country, but they still do not want to fully identify themselves as being Somalis. Now, that's, you know, that tells you something. It tells you the fear that, well, they do not definitely know.
So they got
what,
one leg in and
one leg in
out,
and one
right.
leg out.
Okay.
But if the presidency is able to raise enough forces and everybody is able to see that they can hold their own against internal and external threats, I think you know, it would give them that confidence. For now, the institutions, well, some of them are working. I visited a couple of them. One of them, the Ministry of
briefly,
one of them briefly, yes, because, you know, we had to stop where some Nigerians, where we had Nigerian contingents indeed, you know, being on active duty. One of them, the Ministry of Internal Affairs, and then the other one, the Ministry of Justice. And you still see institutions that are working, but all in all, there's a whole lot that is being done by
that still needs,
you know,
to be
international organization.
Right.
Now,
and
not the Somalis themselves.
Okay.
So we need them to take charge.
Ferdy, thank you very much indeed, and welcome back. Ferdinand Duruoha is Arise Defense correspondent. He's just returned from a reporting trip to Somalia. That's it for this edition of Arise Prime Time. Join us again tomorrow. From me and the entire team here in Abuja and London, bye-bye, and thank you for watching.